Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into the ultimate corporate training session to totally demystify the dense, highly technical process of an enterprise resource planning or ERP system implementation. Let's be real, if you've ever been part of a massive software integration before, you already know exactly how overwhelming it can feel. So today, we're breaking down the exact structured, phased approach to implementing a massive system like SAP, and we're going to translate all that high-level theory into practical, on-the-ground reality. But look, before we get completely bogged down in all that heavy IT jargon and implementation schedules, the source material suggests kicking things off exactly how any high-energy corporate workshop starts. Yep, we're talking about a quick game of two truths and a lie. Now, you might be wondering why we'd start with a game, but this simple 5-minute activity actually sets the entire tone for what's to come. Implementing a massive system like SAP requires intense cross-functional collaboration. You are literally going to be spending months in the trenches with these people, making critical decisions that affect the entire business. You absolutely need to know who you're working with, so building that rapport right out of the gate is a hugely vital first step. Section 1. The ERP Lifecycle Blueprint. A structured approach. So what exactly is an ERP project lifecycle? Basically, think of it as your master blueprint. It is a highly structured, strictly phased approach for taking an incredibly complex software integration from the very first planning stages all the way through to ongoing optimization. The goal of this framework is simple but absolutely critical. We need to ensure all business requirements are met, risks are actively minimized, and maximum value is delivered through standard processes. And we need to do all of that without breaking your business in the process. Picture a macro roadmap spanning all the way from prep to post-go-live. We move sequentially, right? Starting at phase 1 for preparation and setup, moving down into phase 2 for design and blueprinting. Then, the path curves over to phase 3, realization, which is where the configuration and testing happen, before we plunge straight into phase 4, the absolute pressure cooker of deployment and go-live. Finally, we arrive at phase 5 for ongoing optimization. It's a continuous, winding journey where every single step relies entirely on the success of the one right before it. Section 2. Preparation and Realization, Phases 1 and 2. All right, let's really dive into this. Phase 1 is all about preparation and planning. This is where we sit down and actually define the business processes. We run workshops to design them, ultimately finalizing a business process design document, which is often just called the blueprint. During this stage, we also conduct some really essential data mapping workshops. We have to figure out exactly how we're going to migrate all our legacy data over to the new system. And remember, absolutely nothing moves forward without official stakeholder sign-off on that blueprint. Now, during this prep phase, you're going to hear a very specific acronym thrown around constantly, WRICF. It stands for Workflows, Reports, Interfaces, Conversions, Enhancements, and Forms. Just think of these as the custom building blocks of your new system. While ERPs do come with standard features right out of the box, WRICF represents all the specific, tailored objects you need to build to make the system actually work for your unique day-to-day business needs. Okay, so once all that planning gets the green light, we hit phase 2, realization. This is the build stage. We actually get in there and configure the core SAP modules and start developing those specific RICEF objects we just talked about. But obviously, building it isn't enough, right? We have to test it. We prep and execute integration test cases. And crucially, we train key users to run the UAT, or user acceptance test. This is where real users get their hands on the system, run test scenarios, and validate that the master data actually migrated correctly. And again, this ends with a mandatory sign-off before we are ever allowed to deploy. Section 3. Deployment and go live. Execution phases. Things get really intense here as we shift from phase 3 directly into phase 4. In phase 3, deploy, we're setting up the production environment, finalizing our authorization matrix for user roles, uploading the final master data and opening balances, and approving our cutover plan. Basically, it's all about prepping for launch. Then, boom, we hit phase 4, run. The system is finally live, the focus shifts entirely to post-go-live support, troubleshooting any open technical or functional issues, and ultimately achieving project closure and results acceptance. Let's translate a little more of that IT jargon, specifically PRD and cutover. Your PRD is your actual live production environment. This is the real deal, where actual business transactions are going to happen. Your cutover plan?
Well, that's essentially your hyper-detailed countdown sequence. It outlines the exact step-by-step actions required to transition away from the old legacy systems and flip the switch to go live in that PRD environment.
Section 4. Pillars of Success. Ensuring ERP success. At the end of the day, making sure this whole massive transition doesn't just crash and burn comes down to 5 core pillars: initial setup, data migration, system configuration, user training, and testing and validation. From flawlessly transferring your legacy data to tailoring the ERP to relentlessly educating your staff and validating the system, these are non-negotiable. Managing these pillars is exactly what allows an organization to effectively manage resources, streamline processes, and actually achieve their big picture business objectives. Section 5. Time to grab a spoon. Interactive review. All right, you've survived the dense technical walkthrough. So to close things out, the source material suggests a really fun, high-energy review game called Grab a Spoon. Here's how it works. Each learner writes down a review question and its answer on an index card. You give it a point value: 1 for easy, 2 for moderate, 3 for challenging. A volunteer reads their question out loud, and the absolute first person to snatch a plastic spoon from the center of the table gets to answer. Get it right, you get the points. Get it wrong, you lose a point. Whoever has the most points at the end wins ultimate candy glory. It is frantic, it is highly interactive, and honestly, it's a brilliant way to review material quickly. It gives everyone a chance to discuss their own understanding by generating the questions themselves. Plus, it's the perfect way to make sure everyone actually absorbed all that heavy material we covered regarding PRD environments, Phase 2 realization, and those complex WeRiceF objects. So, I'm going to leave you with this one final thought. The next time your company announces a massive system integration, how are you going to react? Will you be drowning in IT jargon, totally confused by what phase you're in? Or will you be the first one ready to grab the spoon, master the blueprint, and confidently conquer the ERP lifecycle?